Have you ever found yourself caught in a relentless cycle, a whirlwind of thoughts and feelings that seem to pull you down, leaving you gasping for air, desperate for a way out? It is a feeling that many people across the world face daily. Consider the groundbreaking study conducted back in 1976 by Drs. Aaron T. Beck and Arthur Freeman. They weren't your typical researchers in white lab coats tucked away in some sterile university building. No, these were individuals deeply invested in understanding the human condition, pioneers seeking to map the intricate landscape of our minds. They brought together a group of individuals. Each one was battling their own inner demons, anxiety, depression, phobias. These are the invisible struggles that can make daily life feel like an insurmountable obstacle. Instead of simply observing, Beck and Freeman introduced a radical new approach: cognitive behavioral therapy. The premise was astonishingly simple yet profoundly powerful. What if, they proposed, our thoughts, those fleeting, often unnoticed internal dialogue, weren't just reflections of reality, but active architects of it? What if, by changing the way we think, we could fundamentally change the way we feel and, consequently, the way we behave? This wasn't some mystical New Age philosophy. It was a proposition rooted in rigorous scientific principles, a direct application of cognitive science, the study of how our minds process information, to the realm of mental health and well-being. Think of your mind as a complex, incredibly powerful computer, constantly processing the world around you. This computer might have a few bugs in its software, a few lines of faulty code that cause it to misinterpret information, leading to error messages and system crashes. These bugs are what cognitive behavioral therapy identifies as cognitive distortions, patterns of thinking that are negative, inaccurate, and self-defeating. For example, you might have the habit of catastrophizing, always jumping to the worst possible conclusion. A small setback at work instantly becomes, "I'm going to get fired and I'll never find another job," a spiral of negativity often detached from reality. Or perhaps you engage in all-or-nothing thinking, seeing the world in stark black and white, with no room for shades of grey. You're either a complete success or a total failure, with no middle ground. These distortions aren't mere fleeting inconveniences. They have a real, tangible impact on your emotional state. They can trigger feelings of anxiety, sadness, hopelessness, even anger. And these emotions, in turn, influence your behavior. If you constantly believe you're going to fail, you might start avoiding challenges, procrastinating on important tasks, or even giving up altogether. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, a vicious cycle driven by the very thoughts you're trying to escape. This right here is the core concept of the cognitive behavioral model, the intricate dance between our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. They are not separate, isolated entities, but rather interconnected parts of a dynamic system. A change in one inevitably ripples through the others, creating a cascade of effects. Cognitive behavioral therapy is essentially about becoming a skilled debugger of your own mental software. It is about learning to identify those faulty lines of code, those distorted thought patterns, and rewriting them with more accurate, more adaptive ones. It is important to note that the goal isn't to eliminate negative thoughts altogether. That's not only unrealistic, but also potentially harmful. Negative emotions like sadness or fear can serve important functions, alerting us to danger or motivating us to make necessary changes. The goal of the therapy is to develop a more balanced and realistic way of thinking. It is about recognizing that your thoughts are not necessarily facts, but rather interpretations of events, shaped by your past experiences, your beliefs, and your current emotional state. Let's return to Drs. Beck and Freeman and their 1976 study. They taught their participants a set of specific techniques, tools to help them challenge and modify their negative thoughts. One of these techniques, and perhaps the cornerstone of this therapy, is something called cognitive restructuring. Imagine you receive a critical email from your boss. Your immediate automatic thought might be, "I'm a terrible employee. I'm going to get fired." Cognitive restructuring encourages you to pause, take a deep breath, and examine that thought with a critical eye. Is it truly 100% accurate? Is there any other possible interpretation of the email? Perhaps your boss is simply having a bad day. Perhaps the criticism is specific to one particular task and doesn't reflect your overall performance. You might then use a technique called the dysfunctional thought record, or DTR. This is essentially a journal where you write down the situation, the automatic negative thought, the emotions you experienced, and then, crucially, you challenge that thought. You look for evidence that supports the thought and evidence that contradicts it. You then come up with an alternative thought, a more balanced and realistic interpretation of the situation. In the case of the critical email, your alternative thought might be, "My boss provided some constructive feedback. It's an opportunity for me to learn and improve." Notice the difference. This isn't about forcing yourself to be positive, it's about striving for accuracy and objectivity. Another powerful technique, often used in conjunction with cognitive restructuring, is something called Socratic questioning. This involves the therapist or even yourself acting as a sort of mental detective, asking a series of probing questions to help you examine the validity of your thoughts. Questions like, what evidence do I have to support this thought? What evidence contradicts it? Am I falling into any common thinking traps like catastrophizing or all or nothing thinking? What would I tell a friend who was having this thought? Is there another way of looking at this situation? These questions are not meant to be dismissive or invalidating. They are designed to gently nudge you towards a more nuanced and objective understanding of your own thought processes. Think of it as a guided exploration of your inner landscape, a process of uncovering hidden assumptions and biases that might be distorting your perception of reality. Cognitive behavioral therapy isn't solely about thinking, however. It's equally about doing. It recognizes that our behaviors play a crucial role in maintaining our mental and emotional well-being. This is where behavioral experiments come in. Let's say you have a fear of public speaking. Your automatic thought might be, if I give a presentation, I'll make a fool of myself and everyone will laugh at me. A behavioral experiment would involve testing the validity of that thought in the real world. You might start small, perhaps by giving a short presentation to a trusted friend or colleague. You would then carefully observe what actually happens. Did you make a fool of yourself? Did everyone laugh? More often than not, the reality will be far less catastrophic than your anxious mind predicted. This process of gradually exposing yourself to feared situations is known as exposure therapy, and it's a cornerstone of treatment for anxiety disorders, including phobias, social anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. The key principle behind exposure therapy is that avoidance, while it might provide temporary relief from anxiety, ultimately reinforces the fear. By consistently avoiding the things you fear, you never get the chance to learn that they are not as dangerous or threatening as you believe. Exposure therapy breaks this cycle of avoidance, allowing you to gradually confront your fears and build confidence in your ability to cope. There's also graded exposure, where you start with situations that provoke only mild anxiety and gradually work your way up to more challenging situations. You might begin by simply imagining yourself giving a presentation, then move on to practicing in front of a mirror, then a small group of friends, and finally, a larger audience. And for certain types of anxiety, there's interoceptive exposure, which involves deliberately exposing yourself to the physical sensations associated with anxiety, such as a racing heart or shortness of breath. This might sound counterintuitive, but the goal is to learn that these sensations, while uncomfortable, are not actually dangerous. Another crucial behavioral technique, particularly effective in treating obsessive-compulsive disorder, is response prevention. This involves resisting the urge to engage in compulsive behaviors, the rituals that individuals with obsessive-compulsive disorder perform to alleviate their anxiety. For example, someone with a fear of contamination might resist the urge to wash their hands excessively. Beyond these core techniques, the therapy often incorporates a range of other skills-building approaches. Social skills training can help individuals who struggle with interpersonal interactions, teaching them how to communicate more effectively, assert themselves appropriately, and build stronger relationships. Relaxation techniques, such as deep breathing exercises and progressive muscle relaxation, can help manage anxiety and stress. Problem-solving therapy provides a structured approach to tackling challenges and making decisions, breaking down overwhelming problems into smaller, more manageable steps. And for those struggling with depression, behavioral activation is a key component of treatment. Depression often leads to a decrease in activity and engagement in pleasurable activities, creating a vicious cycle of low mood and withdrawal. Behavioral activation encourages individuals to gradually increase their involvement in activities that bring them joy or a sense of accomplishment, even if they don't feel like it initially. This might involve scheduling activities, setting small achievable goals, and tracking progress. We also cannot forget the importance of mindfulness in all of this, the concept of focusing your attention and being present in the moment. The versatility of this therapeutic approach is truly remarkable. It is not a one-size-fits-all approach, but rather a flexible framework that can be adapted to address a wide range of mental health challenges. We've already touched on its effectiveness in treating depression and anxiety disorders, but its applications extend far beyond that. For individuals struggling with eating disorders, such as anorexia nervosa or bulimia nervosa, this therapy helps to challenge distorted thoughts about food, body image, and weight. It also helps to regulate eating patterns and develop healthier coping mechanisms. In the realm of substance use disorders, the therapy helps individuals identify triggers for substance use, develop strategies for coping with cravings, and prevent relapse. It addresses the underlying thoughts and beliefs that contribute to addictive behaviors. Even for individuals with personality disorders, while it may not be the primary treatment for all types, it can be helpful in addressing specific problematic behaviors and thought patterns, such as impulsivity or emotional dysregulation. The benefits of cognitive behavioral therapy extend beyond clinical populations. It can be a valuable tool for anyone seeking to improve their mental well-being, manage stress, enhance their relationships, or simply gain a deeper understanding of themselves. It has been shown to be helpful in managing chronic pain, insomnia, and even relationship problems. Now, it is important to acknowledge that this therapy is not a magic bullet. It is not a quick fix that will instantly resolve all your problems. It requires active participation, commitment, and a willingness to challenge your own thoughts and behaviors. It is a collaborative process where you work together with a therapist, as a team, setting goals, developing strategies, and monitoring progress. And it's also important to recognize that this approach may not be the right one for everyone. Some individuals may find other therapeutic approaches, such as psychodynamic therapy or humanistic therapy, more helpful. The best approach will depend on individual needs, preferences, and the specific nature of the challenges they are facing. Furthermore, this therapy primarily focuses on the present, on identifying and modifying current thought and behavior patterns. Unlike some other therapies, such as psychoanalysis, it doesn't delve deeply into the past, exploring childhood experiences or unconscious conflicts. While understanding the past can be valuable for some, this approach emphasizes practical strategies for managing current difficulties. But the crucial point is this: the effectiveness of cognitive behavioral therapy is not just anecdotal, it is backed by a substantial body of scientific evidence. Numerous randomized controlled trials, considered the gold standard of research, have demonstrated its efficacy for a wide range of mental health conditions. Meta-analyses, studies that combine the results of multiple studies, consistently show that cognitive behavioral therapy is at least as effective and often more effective than other forms of therapy, and in many cases as effective as medication, but without the potential side effects. This is not to say that this therapy is a perfect solution or that it works for everyone, but the sheer weight of evidence supporting its effectiveness is undeniable. It represents a powerful testament to the ability of cognitive science to inform practical interventions that improve people's lives. So where do you stand right now as you listen to these words? What thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are shaping your experience? Are there patterns you recognize, cycles you feel trapped in? Perhaps you've noticed a tendency to catastrophize, to jump to the worst possible conclusion, or to engage in black and white thinking. Maybe you've found yourself avoiding situations that make you anxious or struggling with persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. The beauty of this therapy is that it empowers you to take control of your own mental well-being. It provides you with a set of tools and techniques that you can use to challenge your negative thoughts, manage your emotions, and change your behaviors. It's not about passively receiving treatment, but about actively participating in your own healing and growth. It is a journey of self-discovery, a process of learning to understand your own mind, to recognize your own patterns, and to develop the skills to navigate the inevitable challenges of life with greater resilience and wisdom. It invites you to become a scientist of your own experience, to experiment with new ways of thinking and behaving, and to observe the results with curiosity and compassion. It is not always easy. It requires courage to confront your fears, to challenge your ingrained beliefs, and to step outside of your comfort zone. But the potential rewards are immense. A greater sense of self-awareness, improved emotional regulation, stronger relationships, and a more fulfilling life. Think of cognitive behavioral therapy not as a cure, but as a toolkit, a set of skills that you can learn and practice throughout your life. It is a way of cultivating a more mindful, more balanced, and more resilient way of being in the world. It is a path towards greater freedom, not just from the symptoms of mental illness, but from the limiting beliefs and patterns that can hold us back from living our fullest lives. It is a journey, not a destination, and one that is ultimately guided by your own values, your own goals, and your own unique strengths. And it is a journey that begins with a single, simple, yet profound question. What if you could change the way you think, and in doing so, change your life?